Ready? 3, 2, 1. How's everybody doing tonight? How y'all doing? Everybody good? All right.
Oh gosh, I love it.
Now it's an official, magic podcast.
Welcome everybody to the I.B.M podcast. Scott just opened it for us, and that is what you can expect when you go see a magician. That is a topic for a whole other podcast. I'm sure I'll get hate mail for it. This is a special podcast. We only do 2 of these a month, but for the first 2 months, apparently, we have somehow pulled out a third. So this is a supplemental podcast because we have a very cool opportunity. The brand new television show, it's a series, David Blaine Do Not Attempt, releases on the 23rd. It's going to be out on Nat Geo and then on Hulu the next day. And
Nat Geo, Jason, for those of us who are more elderly, is National Geographic.
They used to have magazines. Do they still have those?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I
They still, they're going to love this podcast. They'll be like, God, this guy doesn't know anything about us. So,
Should we just start over?
You want to just start over, completely start over? Yeah, that's great. No, we had this cool opportunity to the David Blaine team or the Nat Geo team or whomever the folks are in charge of promoting this show and getting the word out about it. They reached out to us and said, hey, we would love to send you some of the episodes to take a look at. And if you have the opportunity, we would love to provide somebody that you can interview from the show. And we said, man, that sounds cool. And so that is why we are doing this podcast here today. Let me just start by saying, when I got the email originally from them, I was like, I don't have time for this. If I'm being 100% honest, I am not the best television watcher. I really have to get into something to want to watch it. Otherwise, after about 15, 20 minutes, my attention wanes and I just find myself either scrolling on my phone or finding something else to do. So the first email got ignored. And then the second email came in and said, hey, just a reminder. And I was like, all right, what is this? Okay, cool. I like David Blaine and I've always liked the stuff that he's put out into the world. And you know what? All right, let me take a look at this. So I opened up the very first episode and all of a sudden I found that I'd watched the entire thing and I was like, I have to see more. And so I watched the second episode and then I watched the third episode. And then the next day I watched the fourth, the fifth, and the sixth episode. I watched the entire series. I binged it in less than 48 hours and I was completely hooked. It is compelling television. And I was blown away. So that's kind of how this came about. And so when they said, hey, we'd love to provide somebody to from the show for you to chat with, I thought this is a cool opportunity. This television show deserves attention. It really does. And it deserves attention from the magic community because David Blaine has made his name in magic and certainly is a magician. And the show views it is viewed, the whole point, the perspective of this show is that he's viewing these extraordinary people doing extraordinary feats through the lens of magic. And so I thought it would be the perfect topic for us to talk about on the I.B.M podcast. Ben, Scott, tell me what your, tell me what you think.
Well, like you, I basically binged the whole thing. I'm out of town right now, and I wasn't sure how much time I would have to watch it, so I just watched a couple of episodes. I was like, I'll just watch a couple just so that I have an idea of what it's about. And then over the next day, any spare time, I'm like, I should watch another one. I should watch another one. I should watch another one. And I mean, it really is. It's so compelling. It's so great to watch. It's beautifully shot.
It is
because it is Nat Geo. So it's like you are watching any other Nat Geo show where you're like in it and everything is just so crisp and like you're there, and then you just are seeing these people do these absolutely incredible things, and David, being the guy he is able to keep up and be like, hey, I'll try that. Throw me in.
I know, right? It's nuts, dude. To your point, I made a note. As I was watching, and I felt probably the second episode, I was like, this feels like it's part travel documentary. Like it
Yeah.
genuinely, because of the way that it's shot and the places that they're going, and they're telling you all these different places, whether they're in India or Southeast Asia or Japan or whatnot, it really does feel like you're getting to go along and be part of the crew. Like you feel like you're there.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful, it's just beautiful. And so I loved that element because I've gotten into travel over the last 10 years or so. And I really love that element of the show where it almost feels like a legitimate travel documentary where you're just going to all these really interesting places and seeing people do extraordinary things.
It is a show that it isn't really about David. Like David Blaine is the host,
Yeah,
but
that's a good point.
he's just the one taking you to these places to highlight these other incredible people doing amazing things. But because he's who he is, you get this cool aspect of him trying the things as well, and he has a kind of different understanding. The way that I sort of thought about it when I was watching is it's like if you were watching a like a travel food show where you have a
Hmm.
celebrity chef who's going and visiting, who knows the world, they know the food, they're trying those different cuisines and things in these different places,
Yeah.
and is on the
What was that
inside.
show? It was called like Weird Foods, or Andrew Zimmern was the
Yeah,
host, and it's
weird
called like,
weird foods. Yeah, like that kind of thing because David understands doing really incredible feats and stunts and things like that. And so he's able to, and even says this in one of the episodes, like he kind of found kindred spirits,
right.
as he's traveling around, um, and so it really you're right, like it feels like a travel documentary, or like a food documentary of traveling around and seeing all these different things. It's not really
Right.
the David Blaine show. He's just
Yeah.
your guide.
Yeah. Scott, did you have a chance to check it out? What was your experience with it?
Yeah, I'm actually coming at this from a totally different place as you all.
Oh,
I have
okay.
not had an opportunity to watch the show, and now I regret that I haven't, but I will go watch it imminently. Um, I haven't basically had an hour since we got the opportunity to sit down and watch it, and that may have been good for my schedule and my calendar because it seems like based on what you guys have said, if I'd watched the first one, I would have spent 6 hours watching it
Yeah,
total. So
I think you might.
yeah, and so that would be the plan this weekend. So super excited about the interview, but I am coming at this from a different place. I have watched the trailer and read
Okay.
the press releases and read about the show, and it seems really interesting. Obviously, you guys have a different understanding, appreciation than I do, so I'm kind of coming at this more from the standpoint of our audience who's watching or listening to us than I am from your all's point of view, having seen it already. So
Yeah.
yeah, so my questions for our guests will be a little bit different. But let me ask you guys. So you mentioned, and just from reading the press releases and watching the trailer, it's not a series of six magic specials, right?
No.
It is Ben, you articulated it well. David is the host. Um, he's profiling these extraordinary feats and extraordinary skills from extraordinary people in and what was interesting to me about what I read and what I saw, these are remote areas. I don't want to say like,
Hmm.
I mean, Brazil is a well-populated country, but the point is he's not going and finding other magicians to do crazy things, right? These are people that you've never seen before, things you may have never even heard of before. And so I think to your point about it being a National Geographic special, certainly from reading and watching the trailer, it absolutely feels much more like a true National Geographic documentary that happens to have David Blaine as probably the perfect host for this
Right.
type of series than anything else. Where how do you all see, does David integrate magic or his philosophy of magic into the show? What does that look like? From
So
a magician point of view, I'm interested in that particular aspect of it.
depending on the locale where he is going, sometimes he connects with magicians who are in the area where
Cool.
he connects with Cyril in Japan. He
Yep.
connects with Christian Engblom in what is that, Finland, Norway area.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And a lot of when he does that, the local magicians or the celebrity magicians that are in that area connect with him with these extraordinary people. So
Cool.
over the course of the 6 episodes that I watched, there was not a lot of magic that was done. There was some, and there, I think one of the ones towards the end that I watched, I think it may have been Japan, there was more magic in that one than in any of the others. Um, but yeah, no, this is not like a magic special. This is, and here's the thing about this. To me, David Blaine, since he hit the scene, has always kind of come across as that mysterious stranger. He's a dude who comes out of nowhere, pops up into your world, freaks you the heck out with some incredible magic, and then he's gone. He's just vanished. And it's like, what happened? Who was that guy? What? And then the other thing that he does is he does these extraordinary, almost superhuman endurance feats, things that people watch, they get inspired by. But if I'm being honest, over the course of the last 20 years of his career, it's not like he's the most approachable dude. I never felt like I got to know David Blaine whatsoever in any of his specials. He was a very impressive magician. He was created an incredible character that was very compelling to watch, very interesting television. But this show genuinely feels like, after I watched this show, let me tell you,
Mhm.
about the third episode, I said to myself, I want to hang out with that guy. And it's not because he's a magician. I
Yeah.
said, I want to hang out with this guy because, like, I got to watch David Blaine. It appeared as though these were honest emotions. I got to watch him be nervous. I got to watch him overcome fear of doing something that he was freaked out by. I got to see a dude who was watching other people do extraordinary things, and he's jumping up and down, and he's like, that's incredible. You've never seen David Blaine do that before. You've never
Yeah.
seen David Blaine act like a real human before. He's always been this very aloof character. And for the first time, I said, that's a dude that, like, if I called up all my buddies and we had like a cookout, I would want to invite him to the cookout just to come hang. Here, come hang, have a burger. Let's just all hang out, talk, have a big
Well,
time,
do it,
maybe jam
Jason.
a little bit of magic.
Invite him to the next cookout, man.
Hey, David, we do a cookout once a year here in Nashville. You are well invited to come. You just let me know when you can make it and we'll schedule it around you.
There you go. Perfect. Done. Invite sent.
Ben, what was your take?
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. Like you see a very different side of David Blaine. When you watch his TV specials, there's, his signature thing is that you sort of don't see a lot of emotion, right? He's
Mhm.
just kind of stone faced doing the magic. And you see him be not only show emotion, but be really excited about like life. And
Yeah.
like to see him just totally like wig out over some of the things that people are doing and be so excited and then he tries something. I mean, we're allowed to do spoilers, right? We allowed to do a couple spoilers?
Well, they didn't tell us not to, so.
Okay.
Just
Uh
don't do too much because I want to, I
I
want to
won't do
feel the
too much, but
experience.
I believe this was I think it's in India. Um, he's with a guy that does this really incredible fire act. And one of the things he does is he sets what looks like kind of a rag or something that's
Oh,
on fire on
yeah,
his
yeah.
head, that he just like puts it on his head. And David wants to try it. And so he teaches him and he does it. And then, takes it off and he goes, how did, he looks at his crew and he goes, how did that look? And they show him on the phone like what it looks like. And he just starts laughing hysterically. He's like, "Oh my gosh, that looks so good. That looks so cool." So I think for a lot of magicians, it's gonna be so cool to see this
Yeah.
very different side of him, a very real human side of him that's excited about trying these things and like Jason said, also being nervous about things. You see him be extremely nervous. You see him back out of things at sometimes and take a break and then return to it later. Um, Really, really, really cool. It's cool to see that side of him. But to answer your question that you actually asked, Scott, was was like about magic being part of
I'm
it.
like a really good politician. I'll just
No,
say
you
whatever
kind
I
of
was
answered
going to
that
plan
question
on
too,
That's
Dave.
saying.
right. But David does shine everything through the lens of magic. He does talk a lot um about Houdini and things that Houdini would do, or things that David has done in the past, shows different stunts and magic feats that he's done in his career and other old magicians and a lot of the interesting stunts that David's worked on over the years as
Yeah.
well. So he does allude to a lot of those things and does show things through that lens. And a lot of the guests that are on the show are street performers, and so they share that kind of feeling. It's not just doing, I mean, yes, there are people that they go skydiving and that's just a sport and that's fun for them, but there are a lot of people that are performers. So a lot of it's really applicable to magic.
So
That,
it
yeah,
totally
that sounds great. And it's, you know, from what you guys have said, I'm really excited about watching it because, to your point about the the character David is on screen sounds more like who David Blaine probably really is, right? Because you're seeing him in these genuine situations that he didn't script and he didn't choreograph and he didn't
yeah,
plan, right?
yeah,
And he's meeting, new people for the, obviously they talk to these people about being on the special and so forth, but it's a new environment, right? And so to see him interact in that way, one of my favorite things being a magician, obviously I love to watch the audience's reaction when I perform or when I see a good magician perform and I watch the audience more than I watch the magician, right? We all love that because that's one of the reasons for me, and I suspect for most of us, that we got interested in it because the reaction. Like
mhm,
the quote from the Prestige, it was the look on their faces, right? And so that's a piece of it. But now one of my favorite things to do when I watch magic, if I'm with other magicians, is to watch their experience
mm,
watching the show. So to be able to see someone at the caliber and level of David Blaine and as accomplished as he is in our world of magic, to see him react in that way, like we all did as kids, right?
right.
Sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun.
I mean,
So
there's literally a moment where David looks to his crew and says, "This is the craziest thing I've ever seen anyone do."
yeah, yeah. And but just I felt the same way when I was watching. I was like, I know that this is not going to end in complete tragedy because I don't think that they would have sent me this if it did. But
Yeah.
oh my gosh, what are these crazy nuts doing right now? Um, it does remind me, watching David collaborate with these people reminds me of how magicians collaborate. So if you're a magician, you know what it's like to get together with people and jam and talk about methods and work on ideas. But if you're not a magician and you just happen to be interested in the show and you're like, well, somehow I stumbled onto this podcast, and it's, they're magicians talking about him, so let's listen to it. What you see David do with these people very much is how, if you've ever been interested in the world of magic, this is how magicians share secrets. Like, this is the best way. The best way is that magicians get together and they sit around and they just throw ideas at each other and they show each other their expertise, the things that they've perfected. And that very much felt like this,
Yeah.
or this felt like that, I guess I should have said.
Well, and based on the conversation you guys have had and just watching the trailer, because you see some of those reactions from David in the trailer, right? They obviously wanted, the show properly wanted to highlight the fact that this is not like the David Blaine specials that you've seen, right, on Street Magic or whatever it is. And they highlight that. Some of the visuals, I mean, obviously the trailer is meant to do a very specific thing, but I can only imagine that there's a lot more than what the trailer is showing. But the visuals in the trailer are, Ben, I think you were talking about it, are stunning. And I don't mean just from the look and the aesthetic, although of course it's National Geographic, so it's going to look stunning. But like, everybody go watch the trailer. Watch the trailer, and then from the trailer you're going to know, hey, this is something I should check out, or this is not for me because it would freak me out, whatever. But no, I think you're going to watch it, be like, I have to watch this show. um Certainly after listening to you guys chat. uh
The storytelling is superb.
so that's interesting. So, because there have been other extraordinary feat shows before, right? Was it Stan Lee that had one?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And there's been a couple of others, and they're fine. Like, I enjoyed those shows, and that's why this one's really interesting to me. But you just said something, Jason, that I want to hook onto and ask about. So, from a storytelling standpoint, because I didn't have that perception about the show in terms of the stories. Are we learning about, well, obviously we're learning about these individuals, I assume. Tell me more about that piece of it because I didn't have that perspective related to the show so far.
So I'll let Ben expand on this, but let me just say this real quick. I found that what was happening was I was meeting some extraordinary people who were doing some extraordinary feats.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I was meeting people who I think this was one of the things that I was inspired by. They had found deep meaning in their passions. Like they found
Mhm.
legitimate meaning, like the meaning of life in the things that they were passionate about. So each one of these guests that you meet, you're learning their story and you're
Yep.
learning what fuels them. And I found it very inspiring.
Yeah, I mean, you're seeing people that are doing something that's hyper specific,
Hmm.
um, and that are just world class at it, and so wide ranging too. It's not just what we would consider stunts or circus feats or whatever. It's everything from skydivers to shark tamers to to the things that we are, that we want to see, people lighting themselves on fire and that kind of thing.
Yes.
So, whatever. But yeah, it's so inspiring. They have such a passion for it. And, like I said, they're really kindred spirits for David as well. And
Yeah.
it's just a very human thing. It's a really human thing. And I did have one other thought that I don't remember. So I'll get back to it.
You know, let me just say this as well. This is a note that I specifically made. As I was watching the show, part of it came down to watching the different guests, but I think it was especially when I was listening to David talk about um, how he's just viewing all of these experiences, all of these feats that people are doing through the lens of magic, and he does perform magic um, on the show, and people are freaking out and they're loving it. And I just want to say this: I think this is important to note. I am a professional magician. I go out and I perform for groups. They pay me to show up. Sometimes those shows are unbelievable and they're the greatest show you've ever done. And sometimes you work in settings that suck and you walk away and you feel defeated and you feel beat up. Um, and you almost need other people to help uh, re-inspire or set that fire again for you. These specials made me proud to be a magician. They made me proud of what I do. And I have not always felt that way because too often people crap on magic and they say things like magicians are geeks or they're nerds
Yeah.
or they do things that don't matter or whatever. And to hell with all of you because what David Blaine has done through his magic and through his example, and specifically through, and for me at least, watching this series, is he made me love and fall back in love with the thing that I fell in love with as a teenager.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really cool. That's really cool.
So,
Yeah.
what
And
do
then
you,
he kisses a cobra.
Wow.
dude? The stuff that he does with these snakes. Hey, let me just this.
Sorry, I just had to, I figured I'd lighten the mood a little bit,
That
break the tension.
was good.
So I decided to look it up, and I think we should talk to our guest about this when they chime in here in a minute. But I looked up the most poisonous, venomous snakes in the world, and like,
And outside of Washington, D.C., they were, sorry.
like
It was an easy thing.
like in the top three or four were the king cobra, which David uh,
Has an interaction
has
with.
interaction with, and the black mamba,
Right.
which the black mamba has apparently the king cobra can kill you in about 30 minutes, but the black mamba has 5 times the venom that a king
Mm.
cobra has, and it can kill you in 15 minutes or less. And
Wow.
and
Guaranteed.
yeah, and you know what? The crazy thing was in the special where he's interacting with the black mamba, the guy says he says, "Oh yeah, he doesn't have to pump you full of venom. All he has to do is just nick you
Like,
with his teeth." It's like,
yeah.
Nick,
what?
you know what?
What are you talking about?
This gives me an idea. So I've
Oh
got the
god.
black t-shirt on and the black jacket on. My new stage name from now on is going to be Black Mamba. I'm gonna go with that.
You are the Black Mamba. Yeah. You know what?
Because
There's
my
actually
show is venomous,
Oh,
and
there
you
you
will
go.
die from it in 15 minutes.
And if you're not toxic, I don't know who is.
There you go. There you go.
Oh, this is just one magic pun after another. I love it.
We could probably have a whole episode on stage names, the do's and don'ts.
The do's and yeah, oh yeah, I hear you on that. All right, it looks like we have a special guest here. Hello, can you hear us?
Hey, how'd you do?
Ah, good. Hello, is this Boz or is it Boz or is it Baz?
Bass. Yeah,
Bass. All right,
Bass.
Bass. Thank you for your time. My name's Jason. I've got Scott and Ben here, and we appreciate you you joining us on the podcast here to
that's
share.
my pleasure.
Yeah. So we were just talking, we were discussing, Ben and I, we both binge watched the whole thing. And I couldn't stop. I'm telling you, I couldn't stop watching it. It was compelling television. I want to hear, anything you want to share with us. I'm sure we probably have a couple of questions, but I'm interested in what your experience was like. Were you're the one of the stunt coordinators, you're the main stunt coordinator. Tell us your job and what you do.
I wouldn't call myself that.
Okay. Yeah.
I like to call myself a glorified nanny. I take care of big kids with expensive toys and I specialize in remote locations.
Okay.
And I was brought into the gig by the camera crew, the director of photography and the sound man and the main cameraman. Those three are people that I've worked with extensively around the globe in remote locations and difficult situations for many years. So my speciality is keeping everyone safe. My rules are simple. Everyone lives, everyone's alive at the end of the gig.
That answers that
Yeah,
question.
everyone gets paid, and we all laugh and smile at least once a day. If I can achieve those three things in my job done.
I need you in my life.
So they brought me in, and yeah, that's kind of my remit. And you know what? It really was a really fun show to work on. It was a really good team had been put together. You feel like a tribe when you're with that. I mean, and I'm a big fan of magic.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like, I came into it like, right, I don't want to know any secrets.
Okay.
I like being blown away by magic. So I'm not here for a behind the scenes look at things.
Right.
And then I really didn't know that much about David, to be honest.
Cool.
I live a fairly sheltered life in the respect that I live pretty remotely without TV and generally on some adventure in a remote place. So that was a great experience, and he was actually really, really cool to work with. He's a really smart guy. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. And for me, one of the biggest kicks was just there's so much you don't see in there.
Sure.
We put so much into making this show, and we tried all kinds of different things. And the one thing we went out and did loads of was street magic.
Mm-hmm.
And taking David into the favelas of Rio to do street magic to people who would never get a chance to experience that kind of thing, like in firsthand. That was super cool.
Mm-hmm.
You must have seen the South Africa episode where we went to the magic school in Cape Town.
Oh, that was very cool. Yes.
That was super cool. And you know what's funny is when he shut the door and got the crew out. Is that in the episode even?
It is. Yeah. He tells you, he
it.
says, everybody, y'all got to go. You're not magicians.
He left his mic on. And I listened to everything because that's one of my ways of being able to respond is I've got an earpiece on his mic. So I can hear the whole thing. And that's about the only behind the scenes that I let myself into with some magic.
So you've got one thing that you can do now. You can now do
I don't think I
magic
can do
trick.
it. No, I don't think I can.
So, guys, what questions do you have for Baz?
So you're in charge of keeping people safe and alive. I imagine that you normally have kind of a rule book that you follow, but David is a special case and he does a lot of really wild things. So were there certain things that you sort of had to go, well, normally I wouldn't allow this, but I have to kind of go with the flow because David's going to do what he wants.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. but the thing is I don't actually. One of the reasons, I mean, I work in weird situations outside of the reason it was a good fit is because I already work in things where a lot of people would consider unsafe.
Okay.
So I'm balancing and judging things in a different way than, say, what you might consider like anyone that calls me like a safety officer or a health and safety expert. I immediately like, I am not that thing. You know, I'm not the guy that says you got to be wearing your yellow jacket. You know,
Yeah.
I'm just, that's just not me. Hey, calm down, dog. That's not me. So yeah, but David is definitely a special case in that. But that's exactly the kind of thing I like doing. And normally I'll test everything. The difference on this is that normally when I do a show and people are being asked to do something dangerous, I won't ask them to do it until I've tested it and done it myself.
Wow.
On this one, that's the difference. You know, I ain't kissing a cobra.
So yeah, so you
I don't
didn't
care how many days.
So what you're saying is you didn't eat like some hot coals?
No,
You know,
I won't eat
okay.
hot coals. I won't eat all the eating stuff. I generally avoid anyway. But yeah, I mean, there's stuff that he did do that I love doing. Jumping off stuff. I love jumping off things. Given the preparation with the fire stunt, I would have, you know, if we had enough of the gels and things for me to have a go, I would have had a go at that. But yeah, there's plenty of stuff he does that I would not. I mean, the knife in the nose. I mean, that moment. Do they show the shot of the surgeon dude looking at it and his face?
The X-ray.
Afterwards?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but there must be a shot. I mean, the look on that guy's face, the Brazilian doctor, he's just like, that says it all. It's like you are that far away from cutting your nervous cord.
That's right. He literally said that. I mean, because he shows that that X-ray and he says, you see that knife? It's right up against your nervous system.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I mean,
what?
For reference, for magicians that know, he essentially did human blockhead with like a steak knife.
Which I have not seen that before.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was I can guarantee it's a genuine steak knife. It's quite fun. My kids have been online and sort of, you know, with the clips that have been shown so far and looking down, and there's people online going, oh, you know, those snakes have had their venom taken out or blah blah blah. I've worked with snakes, done a lot of snake work over the last 30 years, and I can tell you right now, those snakes had absolutely nothing done to them.
Are you serious?
Nothing. We didn't even.
That makes me that is even more mind blowing because if I'm honest, I kind of thought maybe that might be the case. I was like,
nope,
wow,
no. I mean, that was one of the most nerve wracking times, and honestly, more hardcore than the snake kiss was in South Africa when he was doing the snake sitting.
Yeah, that blew me out. Was that the most stressful thing you worked on for this show? For this show?
That was definitely one of the highest stresses. Yeah. I mean, and I was right there, the other side of the window, and I was just kind of in my head. I had over and over in my head. The guy who we were working with, had said to me, he said, "Don't worry, I'll keep David. He'll never be more than half a strike length away from the snake." And I he was joking with me, he was messing with me, but he was also being honest. Like, no one really paid attention to what that means. Because everyone was like, "Oh yeah, that sounds safe."
Yeah.
Because it like, no, that's half a strike length is the maximum distance he will be away. Because that snake, those mambas, they can strike from one side of that room to the other and the same distance again.
So, and just for the record, the guy that you're talking about, the guy who was in the cage, that guy lost his leg because of a bite from a mamba. No. So the guy. Well, or at least there's a complication from that.
It was the reason he lost his leg is because he was rescuing a mamba and a car hit him. However, he has been bitten multiple occasions. He has come so close to dying. He's been in cardiac arrest. I mean, that guy is incredible. One of the most incredible people I've ever met. One of the great things about the show is that we met so many incredible people. Yeah. And I hope we feature them well enough. You know, there's people in there that we met that we didn't feature, but we met so many absolutely incredible people, mind-blowing people, and he's right up there. The guy's just a legend.
Scott, what questions pop into your brain?
Well, obviously you've been doing this kind of work, this adventure work, for a long time. You mentioned 30 years,
Yeah.
Babs. Um, uh, and you've done other similar projects, I presume. What was different or special about this effort and this series compared to other things that you've done? You talk about specific experiences maybe that stood out, but overall, what's your takeaway from the experience for the series?
The time and the space that we gave everything.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It was such a luxury to do something at that level of quality.
Yeah.
Is expensive.
Yeah.
You got to pay me for starters. And I've been doing this a long time. I don't do it for cheap anymore. But so to give something that amount of space and time is so rare in this day of rapid
Yeah.
YouTube. Someone can have an idea to go film some guys doing something we didn't feature, this extreme sauna. Some guys. It was funny. We came back from Finland, and sure enough, some guys that I'm a big fan of on YouTube. Some kids called the Yes Theory. They'd literally had the call on Wednesday of like, hey, there's this guy that does this crazy thing up in Finland. By Friday, they had their airplane tickets. By the next Friday, they were back home, edited and online and
Wow.
being watched.
Hmm.
And while I love what they do, and I think they did a great job and everything, the you're not going to get that National Geographic quality imagery and feeling and just the amount of effort. Like our director Toby, just he's really, it's pretty special to be able to tell a story in a particular way and to give it space to breathe. So to be part of that, that's a real pleasure to have that kind of freedom, and then to have someone in a host position who's as militant about how good it gets done. So sometimes everyone gets pissed off because you're there at 9 o'clock at night in South Africa in a building doing the same thing over and over again because it's just not quite perfect.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, when you see the product, you kind of go, yeah, all right, I don't mind the fact that we put in a bunch of overtime that day to get to that level.
It's such a cool answer, and something that, not being in that world, not something I would have considered, but it makes perfect sense what you're saying, right? In order to produce the quality product, having like you said, the luxury, the privilege of the time and space is huge. Related to that, from a behind the scenes or production standpoint, for this show, and obviously it might be different for other shows. You mentioned the Yes Theory, but for this show, what kind of team did you guys have? What did that look like in terms of the production side of it? Fascinated by that.
On the ground, we're a pretty
Yeah.
tight team. I mean, and keeping it with people who just kind of know each other, and it's you're living on the road together. Everything's got to flow pretty smooth. We had a story team who are great, who just put in, they had an immense amount of time pre-production before
Yeah.
any of us even getting our boots on the ground. They're out there scouting. Well, they're, first of all, they're from New York. They're researching, trying to find people, chasing stories. Then they're going out and scouting and meeting loads of people and running around like crazy. And then they're coming back to the office in New York, showing the director everything they've got, and then narrowing down a bunch of them.
Wow.
And then they're back on the ground ahead of time. And then I'm there and the director's there to meet them. And we run around like crazy and try to meet everyone before the crew then arrive. And then we've got our director of photography, our main camera, our sound, and uh, our AC assistant camera. I mean, that's kind of a bit of a low title for everything they do, but you've got that core group. And then you got our production manager, who she was just amazing. She's just juggling 100 things all the time, and then because everything's changing all of a sudden. And then
Yeah.
David's got his team with him. A couple of people with David always, and sometimes more depending on what we're doing. And so she's juggling all of that. And then we got our local crew of drivers, PAs, brilliant people, fixer. So we're like 23 people
Yeah.
on the ground when we're shooting this whole thing.
Amazing.
And that was the other thing that was absolute pleasure, is the way that this particular company, Imagine, treated their local crew. I really appreciated and enjoyed that. When so from a safety point of view, the thing I harp on about the most is drivers. You know, the lowest guy on the crew is the most important guy for your safety, because statistically, the most likely way anyone's going to get hurt in this is not David kissing a cobra, even it's someone getting in a car accident.
Wow.
And this company put our drivers up in our hotels.
Oh, wow.
That's so rare, you know, and brilliant. So it was generally that kind of level of team effort is really good.
We were talking about the level, the quality of before you got on.
Yeah.
We were just discussing the quality of how beautiful it was. That it's obvious that it's a Nat Geo type of thing by how well it's done. And you know what you just said, I think that's one of those little things that you wouldn't think about, but how they do the smallest of things is how they do all things, right?
Yeah.
So they're choosing to take care of the entire team, from the people with the what you might call the lowest jobs or the whatever, but they're making sure that everybody is treated well. And I think that completely comes through in the finished product. Now, I know we only have you for a couple more minutes, but was when you were working with David and not having known him really ahead of time, was there anything about the feats that he was doing? Was there any, I mean, I know that his magic is literally unbelievable. It's world class. Even he's certainly, if not the best, one of the best magicians in the world. But what do you what was just sort of your what was the take as far as doing these incredible feats and stuff like that? What was your take on that whole thing with him?
Pretty much what you said. You know, he's a perfectionist,
Mhm.
and he doesn't, and he's very calculated. He knows what he's doing. He's he's a he's a smart cookie on that front. So it's a, you know, I enjoy working with people like that, and you know, generally, you know, they don't come with a huge amount of baggage. You know, it's the insecure ones I don't like working with.
Yep.
That's funny.
And he, you know, I'd work with him again. So that's all, pretty much what I'd say about it. I'd be happy
That's
to work with him
fantastic.
again. He's
So
he's you know, it's I would have really enjoyed. I think I also would have enjoyed working with him 25 years ago as well. Because none of us are getting any younger, you know, and it's so looking back on stuff he's done, it's an interesting evolution. It'll be interesting to see where he goes next, what
what
he
is
does next.
yeah, what is the if you have, a minute or two to explain to somebody why they should watch this show. Somebody's flipping through the channels and they go, "Oh, should I watch this? What is the why this? What is the reason?" And just, you don't have to give like a corporate pitch. Just tell us,
Well,
you
I'll
can
tell
just
you
tell
what,
us what
I've
you
probably
think.
been involved in making, I don't know, if I had to estimate it, I've probably been involved in making well over 1,000 hours of television.
Wow.
I've probably watched five, and I binge watched. They shared through, you know, the pre-cuts, pre-going out, they shared it with me as well, and I watched all of them. And my kids and my wife, all of us watched them. And we're people that don't have a TV. And so yeah, having made my thing would be simple. Yeah, I've been involved in making thousands of hours of television, and I haven't even been remotely inclined to watch most of it. Yet this, I was not only inclined to watch it. As soon as I started watching it, I was like, "Oh, this is great."
There you go. Boom.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
incredible.
Re- Great work. The finished product is extraordinary, and we're very thankful that you were willing to come on the show here and share your experiences with us. Thank you so
It's a
much for your
pleasure.
time.
Yeah, thanks
Great to
for
meet you, Bass.
you guys are all magicians.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
are. We're all
Yes.
magicians.
So
Excellent.
also, on behalf of all the magicians, thanks for keeping David Blaine safe.
Right.
Hey,
Exactly.
I'm not sure if I can take credit for that. But yeah, I look forward to, well, thanks to you guys for doing what you do. I get a real kick out of it. It's and I see it all around the world, and it's we met a bunch of really fun magicians around the world as well, and every single one of them was a pleasure to work with, and a pleasure to be with. And every, you know, it's what you do is something quite, it's quite unique. It's quite bizarre how how something can I know I'm struggling for the words here, but you can give us real buzz to people in a really special way, and that's one of the things I most enjoyed out the whole experience was just seeing people get that buzz is just so much fun.
That is
So yeah,
awesome.
keep it up, keep giving people the buzz.
Now I'm getting inspired again.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Thank
Good night
you.
from France.
Thank you so much.
Take
Cheers.
care. How cool is that? Well, fellas, as we wrap up the podcast, this special episode, um, any final thoughts you want to share? I'm pretty blown away by the opportunity to chat with him. I mean, Baz just said that he's created over 1,000 hours of television. He's created 1,000 hours of television, and he still was compelled. I think that's what he says. He's compelled to watch this. What does that tell you? I mean, that tells you. I think, if I'm being honest, I've liked all of David Blaine's specials, but I don't know if it's just because this is where the world is or whatever. I think this is my favorite. Maybe there could have been a little bit more magic in it, but I just loved the opportunity to see him in a completely different, is a completely different person, and it's extraordinarily well done.
Well, just a one note on what Baz just left us with, right? I mean, he's complimenting the art of magic, privileged to be the receiver of that compliment, and I will gladly and graciously accept it.
Thank you.
But and that may go on a poster sometime, but thank you for what you do, Baz. But it goes back to what we were saying before we started interviewing him, and what you guys were saying, and what's very clear, even in the trailer. Baz is talking about that buzz that we're able to give our audiences, and the three of us were all talking about it, and we were talking about it from the standpoint of David getting that buzz, right? And
Yeah, that's
being
right.
being the audience for, not, I won't say for once, because he's obviously seen a lot of really great magic, but in the special, he is a participant and he's the host, but he's an audience member, and he is the spectator, getting that buzz, um, getting that delight, that childlike delight. And so, how bad of a thing could it be? Jason, you were alluding to this too. The reason you got into magic, how bad could it be for all of us magicians to watch a special that so clearly and visually, and meaningfully reminds us of what it is we really do?
Right. And the power of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
The meaning behind it. Not
Yeah,
not just not just superficial, oh, the coin's over here and now it's over there, right? But what can that really mean to someone in terms of the art that we share with them?
It's
So
beautiful. It's great. Ben, final thoughts, my friend.
Nothing as eloquent as that.
go kiss a
Okay.
cobra.
All right. Well, on behalf of Ben Young and Scott Cantrell, my name is Jason Michaels. You can find us online. Please, if you enjoyed this podcast, leave us a review, click like, click follow, do whatever you have to do so that the next time we put a podcast out there, you know about it. We'd love a review. You can learn more or contact Ben Young at Ben Young Live. Those are his socials. Scott Cantrell, rwm at
I know, we're
gmail.com.
working
Oh,
on it.
God,
Yeah.
we got to get that fixed. And I am at Jason Michaels Magic. And if you need to email me, if you have anything you want to discuss, if you have topics you think we should talk about on the podcast in the future, or you want to be a guest, probably shouldn't have said that. Then Jason Michaels Magic at gmail.com. Check us out. And this has been a very special edition of the International Brotherhood of Magicians official podcast. We'll see you next time. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.